We'll make a start now. We've had more join, and we are going to start at 11. So with everyone else's commitments, we'll make a start. So thanks everyone for joining us today. Webinar today is on fire safety, risk assessment, and fire door safety. Some of you are probably already clients with Romero or Sentient, with an HR and employment law and health and safety consultancy. Sorry, I'm just somebody who's just trying to join in. I think that's gone, so apologies. So we just introduce ourselves. First of all, Tony.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Tony Barron, and I've been a health and safety fire consultant trainer for about 25 years now, or too long to remember, really. My background is I'm a trained engineer, manufacturing, engineering, and also specialist vehicle bodybuilding. So I've been around workshops and engineering quite a bit. Alongside that, I've done 35 years of reserve forces, mostly in the logistics role. And I apologise through gunfire and explosions such as that. My hearing isn't too good.
My name's Cara. I believe I've got some clients on the webinar today. I recently joined Sentient and Romero about just over a year ago. My background is logistics in the RAF, but I've been working within health and safety for about 8 years now, covering a range of all industries, general health and safety and fire safety as well.
So just to give you a quick run through of some of the services we can offer from Sentient and Romero, we'll just whip through these quickly just to give you an idea. Sorry, I'm just having a slide. So from the health and safety services side, we offer 24/7 urgent telephone calls, priority support for RIDOs. If you unfortunately have to submit a RIDO, we can assist with that. Raising with enforcement teams and or liaising with enforcement teams and the HSE and your insurers if required. Also provide practical and pragmatic advice by email, meetings, or telephone or in person if required. We have a bespoke letter writing and procedures for drafting that. Template letters and document libraries, risk assessment coaching, we can assist in that. Cost coaching, we can also provide training on many other health and safety topics to assist you. We have a training side of our business, which we run the IOS Managing Safety course. So we've got one coming up in 2 or 3 weeks' time. If anybody's interested, we've got places left. We also send out regular updates on changes in the law or guidance. We assist and guide managers on how best to address and be compliant with behavioural issues, employment engagements, and such as that.
On the HR side, also 24/7 advice service, providing the same kind of drafting letters, grievances, dismissals, training on recruitment, grievances, a range of in-house and do public courses as well. We assist kind of aiming to be more practical and pragmatic rather than just stating the law, which you can tend to get with larger consultancies. And we send out regular updates as well. You'll already be receiving them if you're part of our client base.
Alongside that, we operate with Romero Insurance Brokers, or part of the group. And Romero is the UK's #1 independent insurance brokers, offering bespoke commercial insurance solutions designed around your unique needs. And their expertise covers sectors from all forms of corporate and commercial insurances, with a commitment to exceptional service. And these are delivered in person by teams and our expert team. We also have a sister company, We Are Wellbeing, and they are one of the UK's leading employee wellbeing organisations, specialising in giving business and individuals the resources, support and training that they need to implement workplace wellbeing strategies. So today we're going to go on to the subject, which is fire door safety and also fire risk assessments and how fire doors fit within that framework.
So apologies, seem to have a bit of an error on the slides we're presenting. Just bear with me just 2 minutes and we'll be back. Sorry, apologies about that. We had the wrong slides there.
So yes, going on today, we're looking
That's what we're trying to do. Trying to turn that off.
looking at fire door safety legislation, fire door sets, and how fire door sets within the fire risk assessment, how they sit in that area. So the aim of today then is to support the British Woodworking Federation in its Fire Door Safety Week, which runs this time every year. And again, this year it's 23rd to the 27th of September, so it's a good opportunity to support this aim. So the aim is to raise awareness of the critical role that fire doors play in saving lives, which is the ultimate aim, and also protecting property in the unfortunate event that you do have a fire at the premises. Main piece of legislation that covers this is the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order of 2005. And there's the web link there if you wish to go and have a look at that in a bit more depth.
We got have we got?
So fire door sets.
Oh look, that's 12 of 54. So
We've missed it.
Can we just ask for now,
Which
unless
is
you've got
synced
questions, could you
presenter.
put yourself on mute, please?
um
So there should be a small microphone icon next to your camera. You could just put yourself on mute. Just if you've got a question, obviously unmute yourself, please do. But just for now, okay, I think that's done great. Thank you.
I need to
No.
Okay, we'll move on then. So just to have a quick look at the definitions then. So what is a fire door set? We often refer to fire doors, but actually it's much more than that. It's the whole part of the frame as well, and the picture which we'll look at. So fire doors are an essential element in maintaining the integrity of the fire safety measures within your building. A fire door is an opening in the fire compartment that allows persons to travel through a wall opening into and through a fire compartment. So it's critical that we were able to manoeuvre around a building. Without fire doors, we would struggle. A fire compartment then is designed to prevent the spread of fire and smoke, and it also holds it in a certain room or area, i.e. the compartment, for a determined time. And this is often for newer buildings, you'll find that on fire strategy drawings and such as that determine how it's been built to that type of resistance. Older buildings, it can be a bit harder because often there are these fire strategy drawings available. So to allow access and safe escape for persons and to protect the neighbouring building or assets, you need to have fire doors that are of good condition. Further to that then, a fire door or shutter, which together with its frame and furniture are installed in a building, is intended when closed to resist the spread of fire and gaseous products, which is the smoke side of it, for a specified period of time and meets its performance criteria. So what do fire door sets do then? So fire door sets are just not ordinary doors, and they should be deemed as and respected as a critical equipment in fire life safety devices with a fire resistance rating used as part of a passive fire protection system. So there's many different types of fire ratings. We'll have a look at a few of those in a minute. It also reduces the spread of fire and smoke between the separate compartments of the structure to enable the safe egress of people from a building. Scope and application then of fire door sets. The requirement for fire doors extends to various parts of the building, including bin stores, stations, data centres if you've got those, or server rooms, offices, warehouses, manufacturing facilities, and doors separating different fire compartments within the building. There's many, many more different areas, but it takes time to list all those and go through them all. But you should be aware of where your fire doors are set within your building. So this little diagram gives us a bit more information on the fire door. So a fire door would be at least 44 millimeters thick, and that would be for a 30 millimeter fire door. The abbreviation FD means fire door. Or if you've got a compartment that requires longer time, often you find this is electrical cupboards, or could be server rooms, or areas that need more critical protection, then you may find a 60-minute fire door. And these would be of solid construction and have 3 hinges. It will usually have a self-closing device on it. A fire door keeps shut, locked or closed, depending on what the room is. Signage should be displayed, and also a latching mechanism, although this is not usual on a double swing type door. You also probably find seals around the side and the top, and the maximum gaps of these should be 4 millimeters. We'll have a look at those in a few minutes. Also along the side and the tops, and we allow a little bit more, 8 millimeters at the bottom of the door, although in some older buildings this can be difficult to achieve because the floors may not be level. The reason that they allow more at the bottom of the door is because the smoke and the heat obviously form in the top of the room before it starts moving down. By the time it gets to the bottom, then it would be probably unsurvivable to exit from the building at that point. You should also find a label on the top edge, or you may find a coloured plastic plug in the hinge side of the door. And sometimes they have a vision panel in rated glass with a stamp in the corner. So, fire doors. This is an area that we often struggle with, and we find a lot of issues around. And this boils down basically to how they're looked after and maintained. So fire doors are one of the most critically important fire safety features in your building. And the best practice from the British Woodworking Foundation states that regular 6-monthly inspections of fire door sets are essential to ensure that the full fire safety measures are being met. And in fact, coming out of Grenfell inquiries and such as that, for accommodation or housing and such as that, they've actually brought it down to 3 months now to get those inspected. And that's how much emphasis they're putting on. Unfortunately, the bad statistic on this one is that there's a fire door inspection scheme, FDIS, you sometimes find it abbreviated. The data from them has proved from 100,000 fire door inspections that were carried out in 2021, that unfortunately 75% of fire doors failed the inspection in the UK, and all those are putting persons at risk. So the fire door, as you can see, is an absolute critical part of your fire safety management scheme. Some things to look out for then, and these are highlighted in the next few slides. So are your doors certified? So look for a label or a plug, as we mentioned earlier, or similar marking to show that it's certified and it also follows the instructions. Important, all ironmongery, such as locks, latches, closures, hinges, these must be CE marks and compatible with the door leaf certification. So again, if you ever come to doing any maintenance, be careful that changing components, make sure that they are fit for the purpose and like for like. This little slide here, this shows the British Woodworking Federation, the BWF. They apply a label in their scheme to the top edge of the door. Now, often we get problems is that the person who comes to install the door removes the label, or they get painted over during maintenance and such as that, which makes it difficult to locate and identify exactly what specification the door is. At the bottom of that slide, then, it gives you more information. So on the top of the label, it says fire certification number and the unique sequential number. So that's actually to that door. It also gives you the company's name, who manufactured the door, and also the company's own telephone number. So if you needed to, you could actually get in contact with them. And one of the big problems that a fire door inspector has is finding this certification often. It's for old buildings, it's usually disappeared. But through a labelling system, sometimes you can actually get back and find exactly what that fire door should be able to do. On the right-hand side of the label then, on the yellow patch, you can see there, it tells us what the fire door rating is. And in this case, it's an FD30, which means 30-minute fire door, 30-minute resistance. Another scheme that you may come across in opposed to the BWF one, sorry, is the BM Trada system. And what they do is they drill a small aperture into the hinge side of the door, and then they insert a coloured plug to tell you what the information is. Again, the problem we get sometimes is these do get painted over, but they are a little bit more robust as opposed to the label, where you can, if need be, scratch the paint off if you can find the plug. And there's different colours, so as you can see there, the yellow is for 30 minutes, blue is for 60 minutes, brown is for 90 minutes, and black you read up to 120-minute fire door. And there's a key on the right-hand side there that gives you more information as to the inner tree colour. It has various parts there that give you more information. So moving on then, apertures, we touched on these briefly before. Altering the door with glazing apertures or air transfer grills will make the certification void. So if you get a new door, be very, very careful if you start having to cut apertures in, even letterbox apertures or airflow apertures or anything like that into a door or vision panels, because you will then take the door outside of the certification that it was tested under. So be very careful of that one. Caps and seals then, we're looking at, say, between 2 and 4 millimeters the gap. We don't want it tight because you can end up getting a door hinge bound, so it won't actually shut into the frame correctly. So make sure there's a couple of millimeters, but really no more than 4 millimeters. And this is to allow that the smoke seals and the intumescent seals to operate correctly. So it's recommended aim for a 3 millimeter gap. It's quite precise in the distance. So 2 millimeters doesn't sound a lot of tolerance, but that's what you need to make sure that the fire door works correctly. So again, 3 millimeters ensures adequate room for your intumescent strips to activate in the event of a fire. The maximum gap, as we've touched on earlier, is for 8 millimeters at the bottom of the door. But again, sometimes you have to look at the floor it's on, because we've had cases where there's quite a significant gap already, but if you open the door to 90 degrees, it actually then jams on the carpet, so it doesn't work in effect. So in a fire, in a room, the room will overpressurize, and smoke will try and find its way out of the easiest route. So if your seals on your doors, your smoke seals on the doors are too wide, then that's its easy route and it'll work out. If on the other side of that door is your main escape route, then you could soon end up with your main escape route corrupted by smoke and heat. So it's critical that those distances are measured. So ensure that seals are fitted at the top and sides of the doors and that they're in place. Again, we often find seals missing or parts missing off the seals, or they've actually never been fitted at all. I found that in numerous cases on brand new doors. Here's a simple tool just to assist us in that role. Just a wedge-shaped piece of plastic. At one end, it's in the blue section, just on the left-hand side. It measures 2 to 4 millimeters. So if you place that into the door gap and it stays within that blue area, then you're pretty much on the right dimensions for that. Along the bottom of the wedge, though, you'll see that there's a brown strip. If it goes past that, then your gaps are too wide. And again, if you at the far end of the wedge, you just can't see on the pictures, if it won't go in at all, then it's probably too tight. So, word of caution here. We often get good fire doors installed, or new ones, or the existing ones are being kept up. But unfortunately, our maintenance people, the painters, come along and they often decorate everything. And this often occurs to the cold smoke seal, which is like a very soft brush seal, which you'll have seen on doors. If that becomes painted, then basically it's ineffective. So if you ever get anybody coming in to do any painting and decorating, make sure you instruct them clearly and check afterwards that these seals haven't been painted. It's a major problem. Again, warn them about not taking the signs or the labels that are fitted on the tops of doors, or they don't do anything in that respect to deface them, because that again makes your job of certifying those doors very difficult. Another important piece of furniture that we require on the fire door is the door closures. Most doors nowadays have these types on the photograph you can see there on the top corner. Some do have them still on the inner side, which pulls the door through like a chain effect. But these are the most common ones. So check that the door has a self-closer, that it shuts the door correctly and it latches into position. And you should test that from the door being only about 75 millimeters open. So it's not very far. Just open it to that distance, let it go, and it should then push itself fully into the door frame and latch into place. If it's not doing that, then it may need the self-closer needs sorting out, or there may be other issues that need to be resolved to make sure that it does actually shut properly into its framework. So the operation then, pretty much similar to what we just talked about, ensure that the door closes correctly around all of the frame. Now, be careful that doors haven't become twisted or warped, because again, that can cause issues where it may touch at the top and there's a wide gap at the bottom, or you may find other things that are causing issues. And again, older buildings often suffer this from settlements and such as that. So fire doors, there's a held open as well over a long period of time. Either they've been wedged open with a horrendous wooden wedge at the bottom, or even through other devices. This can eventually twist the door, so just be aware of that. This picture then gives us a nice cross section of a fire door set. So to the bottom of the door, bottom of the picture, sorry, is the door itself, and then you can see the frame with the cold smoke seal, which is the black brush seal, and inside that it's set into what's called intumescence, which at a certain temperature will then expand and seal the door. It's around about 100 degrees when it actually goes off, so it's pretty warm in there, so you would actually want to be out of the place. But then you're into building protection and making sure that your escape routes are safer to get out of. So you can see that the brush seal should just touch the door nicely. If you get it too small a gap, it can actually stop the door shutting correctly into the frame. Or if it's too wide, it just doesn't do any use whatsoever. Here's some more cross sections then. So on the diagram on the left hand side, this is a 30-minute fire door, so FD30S, and the S means it's got seals in it. And you can see it's bedded into the framework in this case. You do find doors with these intumescence and cold smoke seals actually in the door itself. Either are okay as long as they're functioning correctly. On the right hand, or the next middle slide, sorry, on the middle picture here, it is a 60-minute fire door. So it has seal, which is intumescent only, and then it has a second one, which is intumescent and cold smoke seal as well. And that's obviously just touching the door. On the right hand side of the slide, there's some other types then. So there's a double like rubber blade that you sometimes find fitted. This is doing the same job that the brush seal does. Problem we find with these is, again, over time, the rubber hardens, and it's quite common that you find that the actual vein, the little thin vein that's on it, is actually missing. It's just cracked off and been damaged, or you might find parts of it are broken and damaged away. Often at the lower end where people are going through doors or taking trolleys through and such as that. Middle one is the brush one, which we've talked quite a bit about. And then the far right hand side, that's just a single vein. They all do the same type of job in stopping the smoke passing and the gaseous products coming out. So other good things to keep an eye out then, as you're walking around doing your regular checks on your buildings, such as that. Quite a good easy indicator for a fire door hinge that's starting to wear. Obviously these devices get constant use in a lot of places, is look out for the black dust or the black greasy dust that seems to appear. And these are a couple of pictures of real case jobs where you start to get this emanating from the hinge, and this is usually a good indicator that the hinge is starting to wear. Obviously gravity does its normal job of pulling the heavy door down, and the wear of the metal starts to have an effect over time. So check there's no excessive wear on the hinges. Any problems with hinges, record your findings and report the faults immediately. And worn defective hinges, as they can often show signs, telltale signs that they're wearing excessively. So fire door expenses for fire door hinges. I mean, the top hinge you'll usually find must be between 120, 180 millimeters down from the head of the door. The bottom hinge is usually 200 to 250 millimeters up from the bottom of the door. And then the middle hinge, and the fire door should have 3 hinges on it, you'll usually find is between 200 and 250 millimeters below the top hinge. This is obviously where the most weight of the door is pulling against the frame and the action. So you would have two hinges towards the top end of the door and a single one at the bottom. So installation of fire doors, this is again where we have a lot of issues with people that they'll new fire door. I've had cases where it's been bought off the internet. Very good fire door, nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But the person that's come to install it doesn't understand the requirements of installation, and an incorrectly installed fire door can and often does fail. So what this picture on this slide is showing is 2 fire doors that were both made identically on the same production run by the same manufacturer and everything. But the door on the left was incorrectly fitted, in that the fact that there wasn't insulation seals fitted in correct places, smoke seals. You should even be looking for insulation packers behind the hinges so it's all protected. And this actual door failed at 17 minutes. It's a 30-minute fire door. It failed at 17 minutes because the fire breached past the frame and the doors you can see on there. The door on the right-hand side, it's been correctly fitted. All the components are correct, and it's in the same test scenario, same manufacturer, everything, and that actually went on to 33 minutes before it's actually breached. Now you can see in the vision panels at the top and down the center of the door, it looks like it's marked out in white, and that's actually again intumescent seal that's fitted around the vision panels, coming out, expanding and helping to protect the glass. Again, on the bottom of the door and the door flap, or the letterbox flap, intumescent is installed correctly in there, and as it makes a big difference to how a door behaves and reacts in a fire. I'll now hand you over to Cara, who's going to run through some information of how the fire door sets fits within the fire risk assessment.
Thanks. Yeah, so we've talked about what fire doors should look like, the components. So how do they fit into your fire risk assessments? Well, fire doors, as Tony's touched on, are part of a passive fire protection in your building. Passive fire safety systems are contained within the building, so they don't extinguish anything like sprinklers or fixed gas systems, but they minimise the spread simply by being in place. So they're the walls, they're your floors, they're contained within the building itself. And then obviously openings within that breach of that compartment of that room, that's where your fire door comes in. And that's why they need to be kept in good condition to make sure that that compartment is maintained. So in order to be effective, they need to prevent the spread of fire, prevent the spread of fire and smoke, but ideally both. Fire doors protect a means of escape, which allow people extra time to evacuate that building. I mean, if you think of how many times you walk through fire doors when you go to a Premier Inn, Those fire doors are maybe subdividing corridors, providing that compartmentation to allow people who are kind of arousing from sleep time to get up and get out. So we're probably all aware on this call that fire risk assessment is a legal requirement. I'm just going to mention two changes that have happened recently, which you may well be aware. But fire risk assessments used to tie in the same way that they did with normal risk assessments for health and safety. Whereas when you have more than 5 employees, you need to record them. That's changed now. So fire risk assessments are now a legal requirement for everybody, despite how many employees you have. And the other change has been where previously you just had to record your significant findings, and now within fire risk assessments you have to record all findings. So fire risk assessment, part of the regulatory reform order, a responsible person must make a suitable and sufficient risk assessment for the risks which affect relevant persons. So relevant persons are everybody in your building is going to potentially be affected. So that would apply to your activities in shared premises, visitors, anybody that's affected within your building. One thing just to touch on, actually, I don't think it's in the slides, but if you are in a shared premises and you're doing a fire risk assessment, great, you're doing your fire risk assessment for your area of responsibility, that's correct. But you also do need to make sure that you follow that whole route, and your fire risk assessment covers from where your responsibility ends, well, your office, say if you're in office, down to the escape route where your employees will finally exit the building. It is a bit of a mix between potentially a landlord, but if you are doing, make sure that you cover the whole of your premises and escape route.
There's also the requirement as well. It's always been there, but there's a much more of a requirement since the Grenfell situation and the changing legislation earlier in the year, that you must communicate and cooperate with each other. So if there's 9 people in a building in 9 different offices, there's the landlord and the 9 occupants, and they must all cooperate and communicate and share your fire risk assessments with each other.
Your fire risk assessment, your fire risk assessment will generally assess if you have cold, bedroom a sample of your doors, if you have cold smoke fields and strips which they're in place. Generally speaking, if protecting your needs of the state, they will need both, but there are occasions when they may not be. For example, if you've got limited detection in place. They will look at the provision of any hold open devices and if they're suitable or not. So as an example, you may have heard of door guards, which close a fire door on activation of the fire alarm, where it's listening for the sound. They may not be appropriate on HMOs or care homes. You may need a fire door that's linked to the alarm if you have to have a door open. Those are the kind of things that you'd have a look at on your fire risk assessment. Also, the provision of any security devices. So do they fail to safety? Are they serviced? Are they tested? That kind of thing. How frequently you're inspecting your fire doors? That, generally speaking, it's monthly as a minimum, but it might be more frequently than that. And we'll also have a look at the surrounding structures, and I've put that in just because I've met quite a few businesses, and they've got the most amazing fire door that they've spent a fortune on, because they're not cheap, and the surrounding wall hasn't been of sound structure. So you spend all that time and effort making sure that your gaps are right and your doors maintained, but if you've got bigger gaps in the wall, which we have seen, then it's something to consider when we're looking at compartmentation. It isn't just the door, it's all of the surrounds of the door as well. So inspections would generally be monthly, as we've mentioned. Attorneys, and we're talking about in-house inspections then, so you don't need to be qualified as such. You need some basic information that we've gone through today about what to check on your fire door. But they'll also be, depending on the level of risk and the people you're protecting, you would, the British Woodworking Foundation recommends every 6 months for a more in-depth assessment of your door. You know, that covers the entire door set, the vision panel, the glazing, the hinges. It's a much more in-depth assessment of that door, and your fire risk assessment will tell you if that's going to be required or not. And we've often found that with premises that have just, you know, have had a joiner in and they've installed the door, it does end up in the long term creating more problems, gaps appear more frequently. So if you do have new doors installed, it's better to have them installed by a competent person. You may need to they may need to come back with a 6-month point, 12-month point, just to check that those doors are still closing properly. Under the regulatory reform order, all devices need to be maintained and to ensure they're in efficient state of repair. That would also apply to the fire doors as well. So how do you know if you need fire doors, if you should have them? Tony touched on if you've got a fire strategy for the building, if you've got building plans, if you've had a refurbishment and you've got plans or on build, that will give you a good indicator if you should have them. Your fire risk assessment as well will identify, hopefully, if they are in place, if they should be in place. So your fire risk assessment isn't going to look at what's just in place now. It will look at, does anything else need to be in place? And it might be that everything's fine. We've touched on all of the things that you would identify if you have a fire door or not, but you might not know. They might be a heavy, solid door, and you might think that's a nominal door. We haven't got any evidence, we haven't got any certification, but it looks like a fire door. And there might occasions where your fire risk assessor might say, we don't know for definite, but because of the level of risk, we're happy with if those doors are suitable and sufficient. In our opinion, they would be fine to keep. So how would you know if you need a fire door? Your fire risk assessment, your building plans. There are also some guidance notes as well, some from the regulatory reform guidance. There's 11 notes, like 11 guidance notes in general from small and medium places of assembly, care homes, offices. And that provides some information of when fire doors may be required. We've put a link on there, but like I said, there's quite a few. There's 11, so have a look through them. I mean, I think I'm going to come to a slide anyway that would mention it. But generally speaking, if your fire risk assessment, if your premises is not simple layout, isn't low risk, you don't have somebody who's trained and competent to do your fire risk assessment, you're probably going to need a third-party assessor in to come and do it for you. So other elements that are on a fire risk assessment, we've touched on the fire doors, but it will cover a range of things. Sources of ignition that are relevant to your processes, maybe cooking, housekeeping, who's at risk, numbers of people, anybody with any particular needs, your means of escape, and that will cover travel distances, exit capacity, which will vary for what business you're in. Means of warning, your fire alarm systems, if you've got emergency lighting, is it good, is it sufficient? What firefighting equipment you have, signage, and also, what management procedures you've got in place, such as training, drills, your fire strategy for the building. So a lot of companies do fall foul of not having a suitable and sufficient fire risk assessment in place. What I would just also mention, if you have a visit from the fire service and they come in, they said there's no problems, it's reasonably compliant, great. Just that isn't in itself a fire risk assessment. You will need to record that as you would do any other risk assessment, really. Any responsible person needs to have identified what your risks are and put an action plan in place. And it is a legal requirement, as we've said. There's also a live document, so it isn't something we just kind of do once. It's forever changing. Like, you can do a fire risk assessment one day and then 2 months later something's changed within the business. It might be that your processes have changed, the manner of combustibles, your flammables you're storing, layout changes as well. That often gets that often gets forgotten about. If you put in partitions as an example, partitions up in an office, which are going to affect the travel of smoke to activate some of your detectors. So whenever there's any kind of changes within the premises, there you're going to have to review your risk assessment. If nothing has changed, then 12 months would be the recommendation. But like I said, it is a live document that you're going to just kind of constantly review. So just some examples of talking about fire doors and prosecutions that have happened recently. The one on the left there is for £22,000 fine for failure to install adequate detection and having inadequate fire doors. And the one on the right there, a similar prosecution really, for £29,000 for inadequate fire doors. So we're probably, unfortunately, no strangers to some of the pictures. Like this one is a fire door, not fire door. When it's propped open with these little wedges. I mean, I can understand if you've got a door that's constantly in and out. If you've got them, fire door, they're not going to be effective. But just have a look at some other solutions that you could adapt to. So if it's in a low risk, it's not the only escape. Well, you could have a look at door lock guards. You could have a look at linking door closures to your fire alarm. There are ways around it if you do need to keep fire doors open, but they need certainly not to be held open with a wedge. So they only get one opportunity to do their job. So they are there for a purpose. So make sure that you look after them, make sure they're maintained, check them regularly. As the same as you would do with any other system, brakes in your car, for example, or your fire alarm system, you're maintaining all your other systems. And in the event of a fire, it is those doors that are going to contain that fire and potentially save your building as well as lives. So in summary, then, we've had a look at what makes up the fire door sets, the components, how they should be checked, fire doors within fire risk assessments, where they fit. We'll take some questions at the end if anybody's got any. If you're not a member of Sentient or Romero and you would be interested, please do get in touch for any support with insurance or health and safety, employment law. We'll hand these slides out at the end, so don't worry about trying to write down any email addresses or telephone numbers. We can send them out. Tony touched on the IOSH Managing Safely course that we've got starting next month. It's 1 day a week, which we found works better for everybody having like 1 day a week instead of 3 days. Run every Wednesday starting from the 2nd of October. It's face-to-face delivery at our office, so if you're interested, please do get in touch. Thank you for listening. Our next one is on the 23rd of October, which is HR disciplinary investigations. Get in touch the normal way if you'd like to subscribe for that. And then I will be back on the 19th of November doing a Noise in the Workplace webinar. So the floor is yours if anybody has any questions. I've got one here from Louisa. Most of our branches are multi-occupancy. Oh, sorry, Louisa, let me just have a quick look here. Most of our branches are multiple occupancy buildings, do fire risk assessments ourselves, but our answers also required to do them. So Louisa's question is the landlord required to supply copies of the fire risk assessment? I would say yes. That forms part of the coordination and cooperation, that you're aware of the risk within the premises.
Yeah, definitely, yes. Yeah, they should provide, certainly for the common areas, they would provide their risk assessment to you, their fire risk assessment, and you would provide yours to theirs. And also, if there's any other premises that are adjoining to you guys, then it's now, as I said, they're enforcing it much more now about this cooperation and coordination of the fire regulations to ensure that everybody's basically looking after each other. You could in effect have a building where somebody's got a welding shop going on in a unit, and sat above it is a completely separate business that's an office, and these people haven't been talking as much as they should between each other. It's essential that everybody in that premises, all the responsible persons within that premises, including the landlord, talk to each other. Hopefully that answers your question, Louisa.
Yeah, we'll send you the information on the IOSH course, Barry. Thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome.
Oh, is it based in Leeds? Yes, it is. It's Leeds Bradford Airport, which is where our office is located. Right.
Any other questions, guys? If there's anything you think of in the meantime, feel free to give us a call. Quite happy to help anyone come in.
So Tracy, we have FRA done on our we have an FRA. Oh, sorry, we've done a fire risk assessment on our fire doors and found non-compliances. Like maybe is that supposed to,
Yeah. So yes, I mean, if you found some fire doors that are, you believe are non-compliant, then it's essential that if they're in place, then that they need rectifying as soon as possible, really, in that respect.
Your fire risk assessment should be able to detail what, although they'll all need doing, but your fire risk assessment should be able to detail what are the essential ones, and essential ones generally are those for higher risks. If you have cooking, tumble dryers, those protecting means of escape, fixed electrical rooms, they're all going to be your higher risk, but your fire risk assessment should be able to identify what are your priorities for now. There was also a question, are there any premises that are exempt? No, I think is the answer to that.
And such as that now, if you're holding an event, they should have a fire risk assessment undertaken on those.
Who do we look for repairs? Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Trace, it can be hard to find companies that you know that are competent. After this, there are a couple of places you can try. I'll send you some links, Tracy. Small family home. So Dominic, you've got, for instance, a small family home. Would that be exempt on the fire risk assessment? So in a personal property, so say my home, I'm not going to be doing a fire risk assessment. I would do that, you know, because I won't be able to help myself. But you know, small privately owned premises for the purpose of just that person who owns it.
Can you send me my rent, please?
If you're a landlord, if you've got 18 homes, then yes, you can be required.
Yeah.
Family home is rented out. So if you have a home and you rent that from a landlord, that landlord should have done a fire risk assessment on the premises. Just Dominic, if you're looking for some guidance on, well, we're covering more in the workplace, but if you're looking for some guidance on fire safety in domestic premises, have a look at the LACORS guidance. It's spelled LACORS. That gives you the information on fire safety in domestic premises.
I would advise everybody does their own anyway. Look at it from, you know, from an escape perspective. There's numerous different things. I mean, slightly off thing, but making sure you shut even normal doors helps a little bit. Turn all the electrical appliances off that you can. Obviously, fridges need to stay on and such as that. I know it sounds a bit of a pain, but most fires, unfortunately, nowadays start from an electrical ignition source. So it's best if you can turn as many appliances off as you can. Just reduces the risk. But do your own little fire risk assessment as well at home. You know, how are you going to get out? Which is your route? What to do if it's blocked? Where are the keys for the front door, even such as that? So it's always worth doing your own mini fire risk assessments anyway.
And when is the last time you tested the fire alarm?
Yeah, smoke alarm, good one. Yeah. When it goes beeping in the middle of the night. But yeah, change the batteries on a regular basis for your smoke alarms. They are actual lifesavers. They give you very early warning. If it's anything like my fire alarm or my smoke detector at home, even with the kitchen door shut, it used to set it off when I made any toast. So it's doing its job. But yeah, smoke detectors, I can't sing the praises highly enough of those.
Yeah, so you wouldn't necessarily report it,
no.
but yeah,
But yeah, do your own.
I think that was all we had.
Any other questions, guys?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the nice comments. That's very appreciated.
But if after this, then you do want to get in touch with any questions, or you didn't have wish to have a fire risk assessment done, then please don't hesitate to get in touch.
Yeah, we have very much only just touched on the surface really with fire doors and fire risk assessment. But as we said earlier, fire doors are an absolute critical bit. Nobody loves them. We should take care of them and look after them. And I think, because as Cara said earlier, they get one opportunity in their life to do the job. And if we've not looked after them, then they're not going to look after us. Any other questions, guys? Or if that's it, we'll say thank you very much for attending. If you've got any questions, as Cara said, please feel free to send them in. We'll answer those as quick as we can. Apart from that,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good night from me.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.